Hello everybody, my name is Robius and welcome to a new episode of Assassin's Creed The Real History. In this series, I compare events in a selected character's life within one of the Assassin's Creed games to the actual history the individual lived through. As always, beware of major story spoilers. For today's episode, we will be taking a look at the Italian mercenary Bartolomeo d'Alviano. As is customary, I'll begin this episode by sharing with you his pre-game history, which will inform us on his background prior to AC2, then his in-game history, which we will see depicted in the game, and lastly, we will analyze the differences between what happens in the game to the real historical events of the individual's life. Starting with the pre-game history, Bartolomeo d'Alviano was born in the town of Todi, Italy, to Francesco d'Alviano and Isabella Degliatti. Not much is known about his youth, other than the fact that he was raised in a militaristic lifestyle, which eventually led to his later career as a condottiero, or mercenary. In the following period of his life, which is somewhat unrecorded, we first met Bartolomeo in Assassin's Creed 2, where he had been imprisoned by some fictional members of the Barbario family while in Venice. It is also during this timeline of his unrecorded history where most of AC2's story took place, which therefore meant that it was mostly fictionalized. Historically speaking, however, as his skills increased, he initially served the Papal States in a military position. However, as he grew older and more experienced, he eventually left the service of the papacy and joined the Orsini family's forces in 1496. Soon after, this later led him against the forces of Pope Alexander VI and certain members of the Colonna family who opposed the Orsini. Bartolomeo eventually came under the service of Ferdinand II of Spain in 1503 and battled against the armies of France, ultimately culminating in his victory during the Battle of Garigliano. By winning this crucial confrontation, Bartolomeo was successful in aiding the Spanish to extend their influence over Italy. Continuing his exploits as a mercenary, he was later employed by the Republic of Venice in 1505. The more he served, the better his reputation as a successful leader of men was known, and therefore he was granted the rank of captain in the Venetian cavalry. He continued working for Venice in 1507 and was joined by his earlier ally Niccolo Orsini. Bartolomeo's military success was recognized once again in 1508 when his forces battled against the imperial army of the Holy Roman Emperor Maximilian I. Their greatest triumphs were in Cadore, Mauria, and Ponteba, which led to their conquest of Trieste, Gorizia, and Pordenone. In a sign of their generosity, Bartolomeo's government granted him the control of Pordenone, which the d'Alviano family held for the next 30 years. With control over his new territories, Bartolomeo began to construct his defenses. Unfortunately, in 1509, he was defeated by the French forces of Louis XII during the Battle of Agnadello and was himself injured during the fighting. The Venetians were disappointed by his defeat and angered by the fact that the commander of his troops, his Orsini ally, claimed that he attacked the French without his permission and that this was the reason for their failure. Unfortunately, when the fighting subsided, Bartolomeo was taken as a prisoner by the French and was held for nearly 4 years until the alliance between France and Venice was created in 1513, as both factions now opposed the Duchy of Milan. D'Alviano was subsequently freed when this alliance was established and was later hired by the French and served under Commander Louis de la Trémoille. While serving under his former rivals, he now battled against his former allies, the Spanish, and was defeated by the Spanish Viceroy of Naples during the Battle of Vicenza. Bartolomeo d'Alviano's military career continued for a few more years following this prior defeat. He first conquered back his lands in Pordenone, which had been captured by the Holy Roman Empire for a short period, and continued to serve the French and participated in the Battle of Marignano, where he and his allies were victorious. He also fought in and conquered Bergamo, but died in the month of October during the siege of Brescia. In summary, the differences between Bartolomeo d'Alviano's actual life and his representation in Assassin's Creed 2 began with his imprisonment in Venice. Firstly, the game showed him held by the forces of Silvio Barbario before he was freed by Ezio Auditore, which was evidently not the case since these individuals' representations were fictionalized. Secondly, Bartolomeo was not a member of the Assassin's Order as was shown in AC2. Thirdly, although he was a long-time adversary of the French, until their later alliance, he was never in Rome leading his Italian mercenaries against the Baron de Valois' French troops, as was shown in Brotherhood. Lastly, there is no record of him battling the forces of Cesare Borgia alongside Ezio's new Brotherhood of Assassins, although his military actions did play a secondary role in affecting the Borgia family's power base in Italy. Despite these various changes, Bartolomeo d'Alviano was rather well represented in AC2 and ACB, with his military actions being a central point of his personality and his historical recordings. Also, although his vulgar personality is not necessarily recorded, it made for a great profile for his personality in both games.
You steal a man's wife and then go hide inside a fortress? Nothing hangs between your thighs. In fact, there is a hole there, so deep it reaches into the maledetto inferno!
And with that final fact, we have finished another episode of Assassin's Creed The Real History. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if you did, I highly recommend you try out one of the Assassin's Creed games. Thank you all for watching. Please leave any suggestions for future characters from any of the Assassin's Creed games that you'd like me to cover in the comment section below. Please rate, comment, and subscribe for more episodes, and I'll see you all in a future video.